dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello, fabulous word learners, language enthusiasts, and curious minds. A very enthusiastic and warm welcome back to another exciting episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, your dedicated guide navigating through the sometimes quirky, often surprising, yet always utterly fascinating world of English phrases and expressions. It's truly wonderful to have you joining us again today as we prepare to explore even more linguistic gems together and unlock their secrets.
And I'm Jack, your co-host and resident phrase fancier, absolutely ready and eager to unpack some more linguistic treasures with all of you. Hopefully, I'll manage to do so clearly and maybe even trip over just a few syllables along the way for comedic effect. It's genuinely great to be back here in the Idiom Insight studio with you, Emma. And of course, with all our fantastic listeners tuning in from various corners of the globe, sharing this exploration with you all is always a definite highlight of my week.
Mine too, Jack. It really is. Today, fellow language explorers, we've curated a lineup of 4 really interesting and incredibly common idioms. These are phrases that you will almost certainly encounter frequently in everyday English conversations, hear in movies and TV shows, and read in books and articles. Understanding these specific idioms will definitely help you grasp the subtle nuances of the language more effectively and, importantly, allow you to express yourself more naturally and with greater precision. They cover a fascinating range of situations, from making peace after conflict and understanding the dangers of being too curious, to getting organized and efficiently summarizing long stories.
Absolutely. A really useful and diverse mix for us today, covering interpersonal dynamics, cautionary wisdom, personal improvement, and effective communication. I'm particularly looking forward to diving into these. So, without further delay, here are the 4 idioms we'll be diving into in this information-packed episode of Idiom Insights. First up, we have an idiom specifically about making peace after a disagreement or conflict. Bury the hatchet. Second on our list is a very well-known, almost proverbial warning about the potential dangers of being too inquisitive. Curiosity killed the cat. Third, we'll explore a rather direct phrase often used to tell someone to get organized or significantly improve their behavior. Get your act together. And finally, our 4th idiom is an incredibly useful way to shorten a long explanation or narrative. Long story short.
Those are all truly excellent and highly relevant idioms, Jack, each possessing its own unique flavor, distinct history, and specific usage context. I genuinely think our listeners will find them incredibly useful additions to their active vocabulary for navigating everyday English communication.
I couldn't agree more, Emma. And before we really dig into the fascinating roots and meanings of the first one, just a quick, friendly nudge, a gentle reminder from both of us here at the Idiom Insights team. If you're enjoying these deep dives into the world of English idioms and finding them genuinely helpful on your language learning path, please do consider taking a brief moment to hit that subscribe or follow button on your favorite podcast.
Yes, subscribing is the simplest way to ensure you won't miss out on any of our future idiom adventures as we continue to explore the vast landscape of English expressions. And if you feel extra generous with your time and appreciation, a quick like or a positive rating truly helps other dedicated learners discover our podcast more easily. We genuinely appreciate every single bit of your support. Your engagement really does keep us motivated and excited to create more content.
It certainly does. A huge thank you in advance from both of us. Right then, Emma, are you ready to unearth the full meaning and cultural background of our very first idiom for today?
Let's absolutely do it. Our first idiom for this insightful episode of Idiom Insights is the evocative phrase, bury the hatchet.
Bury the hatchet. Now, this one immediately sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? Perhaps even slightly violent or confrontational at first hearing. Does it involve any actual digging in the garden or the handling of potentially dangerous weapons,
Thankfully
Emma?
not, Jack. No actual gardening tools or weapons are required in modern usage, although the mental image it conjures is certainly quite vivid and memorable. The idiom bury the hatchet simply means to stop arguing or fighting with someone, to end a period of conflict and deliberately make peace. It signifies a conscious decision to end a conflict, forgive any past disagreements or grievances, and actively restore friendly or at least civil relations.
So it's fundamentally about reconciliation, forgiveness, and moving past conflict. It's about formally ending a feud, a long-standing argument, or a period of bad feeling between people. That makes sense. But where does that specific, rather graphic image of burying a hatchet actually come from? It seems quite specific.
That's a great question. It's widely believed and generally accepted that the phrase originates from a significant custom practiced by some Native American tribes, particularly in North America. When these tribes made peace treaties with former enemies after periods of conflict, they would participate in a powerful, symbolic ceremony. As part of this ceremony, they would literally bury their weapons, such as hatchets, tomahawks, or clubs, in the ground. This act served as a potent visual symbol to show everyone involved that the fighting was officially over and that they intended to live in peace moving forward. It's a really powerful symbol of ending hostilities and choosing a path of peace.
That makes perfect sense. It's a very concrete image for an abstract concept. So, to illustrate, if two close friends have had a huge relationship-damaging argument and haven't spoken properly for months, but then they finally sit down, talk things through honestly, apologize sincerely, and consciously decide to put it behind them and be friends again, we could accurately say they have buried the hatchet. They've effectively put the conflict to rest.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Or perhaps consider two colleagues in an office who are constantly competing with each other, maybe even actively undermining one another's work. If they eventually decide that this rivalry is counterproductive and it's much better for the team and for their own careers, if they cooperate and work together constructively, they might have a conversation and agree to forget their past rivalry and move forward positively. In doing so, they bury the hatchet. The idiom clearly implies a conscious mutual decision to end the negativity and actively restore harmony, or at least a functional working relationship.
It must feel like a significant relief both emotionally and mentally when people manage to do that successfully. Holding on to anger, resentment, or bitterness takes a tremendous amount of negative energy. So, making the deliberate choice to bury the hatchet is often a really positive and healthy step, allowing everyone involved to finally move on from the burden of the conflict.
It really, really is. Fundamentally, it's about prioritizing peace, understanding, and forward movement over the continuation of conflict and negativity. And it applies broadly to personal relationships between friends and family, to professional situations at work, and sometimes even between larger groups, organizations, or even nations that have been locked in long-standing disputes.
Okay, I think I've got a solid understanding of that one now. So, bury the hatchet means to end a conflict, stop arguing or fighting, forgive past wrongs, and make peace with someone. Are you ready to hear our familiar characters, Mia and Mark, using this idiom, perhaps after navigating a tricky disagreement of their own?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder what specific conflict they might be resolving in this scenario.
Oh, Mark, it's genuinely good to see you properly again and feel like we can talk normally. Things have felt a little bit awkward and strained between us ever since that big disagreement we had about the holiday plans last month. I really didn't like how we left things hanging, unresolved.
I know exactly what you mean, Mia. I've been feeling the exact same way, a bit uncomfortable. Looking back, it was quite a silly argument, really, blown out of proportion. And I've genuinely missed our usual easy chats and jokes. Holding on to that lingering frustration just feels completely pointless and draining now, doesn't it?
It really, really does. Life's definitely too short for these long, drawn-out disagreements and awkward silences, especially between people who are usually good friends. What do you say we just agree to forget the whole thing happened and consciously move on from it?
I'd honestly really like that, Mia. Seriously. Let's just chalk it up to experience, agree to disagree on that one specific topic, and instead focus on all the many other things we do agree on and enjoy together. How about we officially bury the hatchet right here, right now? Friends again, no more awkwardness. Deal?
Absolutely. Deal. Consider that metaphorical hatchet well and truly buried deep underground. I'm really glad we could talk about it openly and clear the air. Now, come on, tell me what you've been up to lately.
That was a truly perfect and very natural example. Mia and Mark openly acknowledged their past disagreement and the resulting awkwardness it caused. Then, crucially, they explicitly decided together to end the conflict and restore their friendship by mutually agreeing to bury the hatchet. The resolution felt very clear.
Exactly. Their conversation clearly showed the conscious decision required to forgive, let go, and move forward constructively, effectively putting the argument behind them for good. You could almost feel the sense of relief and warmth return to their conversation once they made that explicit decision to make peace.
It's a really useful and quite common idiom for describing that specific, often cathartic act of reconciliation and peacemaking.
It certainly is. So, the next time you successfully make peace after an argument, or perhaps witness others resolving a long-standing conflict, remember the vivid idiom, bury the hatchet.
And naturally, we'd love to hear from our listeners. Can you recall a time you personally had to bury the hatchet with someone? Or maybe you know of a situation where you really wish someone involved would just bury the hatchet. Please share your thoughts and related stories in the comments section below this episode.
That's a great idea, Jack. Let's move smoothly on now to our second well-known saying in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one, as you mentioned earlier, comes with a distinct tone of warning.
Indeed it does. Our second idiom today is the famous cautionary phrase, "Curiosity killed the cat."
Curiosity killed the cat. Oh dear, that definitely sounds rather ominous, and perhaps a little harsh towards our feline friends. What exactly is this idiom warning us against, Jack? What kind of curiosity is deemed so dangerous?
It absolutely serves as a direct warning, Emma. The saying, "Curiosity killed the cat," is typically used to warn someone not to be overly inquisitive, excessively nosy, or too prying about things that don't directly concern them. It strongly suggests that asking too many probing questions, digging too deep, or trying to find out about things that are meant to be secret, private, or potentially dangerous could ultimately lead to trouble, harm, embarrassment, or other unpleasant consequences. Much like a curious cat's innate inquisitiveness might unfortunately lead it into a dangerous or harmful situation it can't escape from.
Ah, I see the connection now. So it's primarily a caution against prying too much into others' affairs or sticking your nose where it perhaps doesn't belong. Being excessively curious, particularly about sensitive matters, can potentially get you into trouble or hot water. For example, if someone keeps asking very personal and intrusive questions about someone else's private financial situation, another person observing this might gently caution them by saying, "Be careful asking so many questions. You know what they say? Curiosity killed the cat." The implication is that they should probably stop asking before they cause offense, breach trust, or create unnecessary problems.
Exactly. That's a very common usage. Or let's imagine someone sees a mysterious package prominently marked, "Do not open under any circumstances," and they feel an almost irresistible temptation to take just a little peek inside, simply to satisfy their curiosity about its contents. A cautious friend might warn them by saying, "Curiosity killed the cat. Maybe you should just leave it well alone." This suggests that finding out what's inside might lead to trouble, disappointment, or perhaps discovering something they'd be better off not knowing. It strongly implies that some knowledge is better left unknown, or some situations are wiser left unexplored if they don't directly involve or affect you.
It's quite interesting because, generally speaking, curiosity is often viewed as a very positive human trait. It's the driving force behind learning, scientific discovery, and innovation. But this particular idiom cleverly highlights the potential negative side, the inherent danger of excessive, inappropriate, or unwelcome curiosity, essentially nosiness. It seems to be about possessing the wisdom and discretion to know when it's appropriate to ask questions and investigate, and when it's wiser to stop.
You've hit on a key point there. It's definitely not suggesting that all curiosity is inherently bad or dangerous. Rather, it specifically warns against the kind of curiosity that might lead you into physical danger, cause social offense, breach confidentiality, or uncover something deeply unpleasant or distressing that you might ultimately have been happier not knowing. It serves as a useful, albeit blunt, reminder to mind your own business sometimes and respect boundaries.
So, to summarize, curiosity killed the cat is a well-known proverb used to warn someone against being too inquisitive or nosy, strongly suggesting that excessive prying or investigation into matters that don't concern them could lead to trouble, harm, or negative consequences. Are you ready to hear Mia and Mark use this classic warning?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder what potentially sensitive topic one of them is being perhaps a little too curious about this time.
Hey, Mia, did you happen to see the CEO leaving that closed-door, confidential meeting room earlier this afternoon? He looked incredibly serious, almost grim-faced. I can't help but wonder what that intense meeting was all about. Maybe something really big is happening with the company restructure they've been hinting at?
I saw him leaving too, Mark. He did look preoccupied. But honestly, Mark, I really don't think it's any of our business what happens in those high-level meetings. They are labeled as confidential for a very good reason, after all.
I know. Technically, you're right, but I'm just so incredibly curious. Don't you even want to have an inkling of what's going on behind the scenes? Maybe I could casually ask Susan from HR if she happened to hear anything. She sometimes lets little bits of information slip if you catch her at the right moment.
Mark, I genuinely, strongly advise you not to do that if I were you. Actively trying to find out details about confidential management discussions could potentially get you into serious trouble if someone higher up finds out you're snooping around or spreading rumors. Remember the old saying, curiosity killed the cat. Sometimes it's truly best and safest just to wait patiently for official news and announcements and deliberately avoid poking around in things that don't directly concern us. It protects everyone.
Yeah, thinking about it, you're probably right. Getting involved or being seen as trying to gather gossip could really backfire badly on me. Okay. I'll try my best to restrain my natural curiosity this time and just focus diligently on my own work. Thanks for the timely warning, Mia. I appreciate it.
That dialogue clearly and effectively shows the idiom being used precisely as a direct warning. Mark was expressing what could be seen as excessive curiosity about something confidential and potentially very sensitive within the company, and Mia wisely used the idiom to advise him strongly against prying, explicitly highlighting the potential negative consequences for his career.
Exactly. Her use of the proverb seemingly stopped Mark from potentially getting himself into hot water by vividly reminding him of the inherent dangers of being too nosy about things that were deliberately being kept private or were simply above his pay grade. A very effective and appropriate use of this well-known warning.
It's an incredibly common saying, often used exactly like that, as a direct caution to someone perceived as being overly inquisitive or meddlesome.
It certainly is. So, the next time you feel the need to warn someone, or perhaps even gently remind yourself, against being too nosy, sticking their nose where it isn't wanted, or investigating something potentially troublesome or off-limits, remember the cautionary idiom, curiosity killed the cat.
And as always, we'd be fascinated to hear about a time you personally heard this idiom used effectively, or perhaps a situation from your experience where you think it would have been very good advice for someone involved. Please share your relevant experiences and anecdotes in the comments below the episode.
That's a fantastic idea, Emma. Let's smoothly transition now to our third idiom in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one is also quite direct advice, often delivered with a degree of urgency.
Indeed, it is. Our third idiom for today, listeners, is the forceful phrase, get your act together.
Get your act together. This definitely sounds like a rather strong piece of advice, perhaps even bordering on a command or a reprimand. What exactly does it mean, Emma, when you tell someone quite pointedly to get their act together?
You're quite right, Jack. It is indeed very direct, and it's often used when the speaker is feeling impatient, critical, or perhaps even exasperated with someone's behavior or performance. To tell someone to get their act together means to forcefully tell them to organize themselves better, significantly improve their behavior or attitude, or start performing their duties more effectively, efficiently, and responsibly. It strongly implies that they are currently perceived as being disorganized, inefficient, unproductive, behaving badly or immaturely, or consistently failing to meet expected standards, and they urgently need to make a significant improvement, usually quite quickly.
Okay, so it's essentially a sharp call for immediate and noticeable improvement in organization, performance, attitude, or general behavior. For instance, if someone is consistently late for work, frequently forgets important tasks assigned to them, and is generally proving to be unreliable in their role, their frustrated boss might eventually tell them quite sternly, "Look, you seriously need to get your act together if you want to keep this job. This can't continue."
Exactly. That's a very common and realistic context for its use. Or, let's imagine a university student who isn't attending lectures regularly, failing their tests, and generally not taking their education seriously, perhaps partying too much. A concerned parent, or perhaps a tutor or teacher, might sit them down and tell them firmly, "It's really time for you to get your act together. You need to focus, prioritize your studies, and start working much harder if you want to pass this year." It's frequently used when someone's lack of organization, effort, or responsibility is clearly causing significant problems, either for themselves or for those around them.
It certainly sounds like it can be quite critical, potentially even harsh. Is it always used in such a severe or negative way? Or can it have a lighter touch?
That's a good point. It can definitely sound harsh, even quite aggressive, depending heavily on the tone of voice used and the specific context of the situation. It undeniably expresses frustration, disappointment, or impatience. However, sometimes close friends might say it to each other in a slightly less critical, perhaps more constructively challenging or encouraging way. For example, one friend might say to another, "Come on, man. You've been moping around the house feeling sorry for yourself for weeks since the breakup. You really need to get your act together now and start moving forward with your life." In that particular case, it's still very direct advice demanding action, but the underlying intention might be more supportive, aimed at motivating rather than just criticizing. The crucial element is that it clearly signals a perceived need for immediate and significant improvement in functioning.
Right, so fundamentally, it's telling someone to stop being messy, lazy, inefficient, irresponsible, or chaotic, and to start being organized, effective, proactive, and responsible instead. It's undeniably a strong push towards tangible improvement and taking control.
Precisely. At its core, it's about pulling yourself together, taking responsibility, and functioning properly and effectively, meeting the expected standards of the situation.
Okay, understood. So, get your act together means to become organized, improve your behavior or attitude, or start performing effectively and responsibly. It's often said out of frustration, as strong advice, or as a direct demand for change. Are you ready now to hear Mia and Mark use this rather forceful idiom in their interaction?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder who needs to get their act together in their conversation, and over what issue.
Mark, sorry to bring this up, but can we talk about the state of the shared office kitchen for just a minute? Honestly, it's really becoming a genuine problem for everyone else who uses it.
Oh, really? What's wrong with the kitchen? I haven't really noticed anything particularly amiss myself.
Well, Mark, that's precisely part of the problem. You consistently leave your dirty dishes piling up in the sink for days on end. You almost never seem to wipe down the counters after you prepare your lunch. And your collection of mysterious, old leftovers is currently taking up nearly half the available fridge space. It's constantly messy, frankly, and it's rapidly becoming unhygienic for all of us.
Oh, right. Well, I've been really busy lately with that big project. I just forget sometimes, or I mean to do it later.
Mark, honestly, being busy isn't a valid excuse for repeatedly leaving a shared space in such a disgusting mess all the time. It's fundamentally disrespectful to everyone else who needs to use the kitchen and tries to keep it clean. Seriously, Mark, you absolutely need to get your act together when it comes to cleaning up after yourself properly in the kitchen. Things need to improve dramatically, starting immediately.
Okay, Mia, you're completely right. I know I haven't been very considerate or responsible about it. I've definitely been lazy and thoughtless. I sincerely promise I'll make a real, conscious effort to clean up properly right after myself from now on. I will get my act together. I'm really sorry, Mia, and sorry to everyone else, too.
Wow, Mia was certainly quite direct and didn't mince her words there. Her built-up frustration was palpable, wasn't it? And telling Mark pointedly to get his act together strongly and unambiguously conveyed the message that his behavior regarding the shared kitchen was completely unacceptable and required immediate and significant improvement.
Yes, it functioned exactly as a clear and forceful call for him to become more responsible, considerate, and organized in that specific area of shared living or working. And importantly, Mark clearly understood the gravity of the message, acknowledged his failings, and agreed to change his behavior accordingly. It perfectly shows how the idiom functions as a strong, unequivocal demand for improvement.
It's definitely a phrase that gets the intended message across very clearly, leaving little room for misunderstanding.
It absolutely is. So the next time you find yourself needing to tell someone, or perhaps even giving yourself a stern talking to, that they need to significantly improve their organization, step up their performance, or change their behavior for the better, you might consider using the direct idiom, get your act together.
And of course, we'd love to hear from you. Can you share a situation where you felt someone really needed to get their act together? Or maybe you can recall a time someone told you to get your act together and how you reacted. Share your stories and reflections in the comments below the episode.
That's a wonderful idea, Jack. Always great to hear listeners' stories. Now, we've smoothly arrived at our fourth and final idiom for this episode of Idiom Insights. This one is absolutely perfect for summarizing things concisely.
Indeed it is, a very practical one. Our final idiom for today is the extremely common phrase, long story short.
Long story short. Now, this sounds exactly like a phrase you would use when you consciously decide you don't want to tell the full, intricate, possibly boring, detailed version of something. Right, Jack? You want to cut to the chase.
Exactly right, Emma. You've got it precisely. Long story short functions as what linguists call a discourse marker. It's a handy phrase we use in conversation to clearly signal to our listener that we are about to skip over many of the details of a potentially lengthy, complicated, or perhaps rambling story, and instead get straight to the main point, the essential outcome, or the final conclusion. It effectively means to summarize what happened, to cut out the unnecessary details, or simply in brief.
So it's a very efficient conversational tool, a way of politely telling your listener, look, I could easily give you a lot more background information and intricate detail here, but I suspect you probably don't need it all, or perhaps you don't have the time or patience for it right now. So here's the quick, bottom line version. For instance, if someone asks you how your notoriously difficult meeting with a challenging client went, instead of painstakingly describing every single argument, counter-argument, and negotiation tactic, you might just sigh and say, long story short, we didn't reach an agreement this time.
Precisely. That's a perfect use case. Or imagine if you had a very complicated and incredibly eventful journey trying to get somewhere, perhaps involving missed trains, unexpected detours, terrible traffic jams, maybe even a temporarily lost suitcase. Instead of recounting every single minor disaster and frustration in chronological order, you could just summarize the whole ordeal by saying, long story short, I finally arrived at the hotel 3 hours late and exhausted. It very efficiently communicates the essential outcome without dwelling unnecessarily on all the stressful intermediate steps.
It's incredibly useful for saving time and maintaining conversational flow, benefiting both the speaker and the listener. It cleverly acknowledges that the full story is indeed long or complex, perhaps even tedious, but simultaneously provides the most essential information quickly and effectively. People often use it quite naturally when they catch themselves starting to ramble, getting lost in tangents, or providing far too much background detail than is necessary.
Yes, exactly. It often functions as a way for the speaker to consciously cut themselves off, regain focus, and get directly back to the main point. You might start explaining something quite complex, realize it's taking much longer than anticipated, and then interject with, anyway, long story short, before delivering the conclusion or the key takeaway. It demonstrates consideration for the listener's valuable time and limited attention span.
So, to recap this one, long story short is a very common phrase used to indicate that you are deliberately skipping the details and summarizing a lengthy or complicated account in order to get to the main point or outcome quickly and efficiently. Are you ready now to hear Mia and Mark use this extremely practical idiom?
Let's definitely listen in. I imagine one of them might be summarizing a rather complicated or perhaps unfortunate event that occurred.
Hey, Mark, how was your adventurous weekend trip? You went camping up in the mountains, right? Did you actually have a good time in the end? You look a bit tired.
Oh, Mia, where do I even begin? It was certainly an adventure, let's just put it that way. It actually started off okay on Friday evening. The weather was nice, we set up the tent, but then the weather turned really dramatically bad on Saturday night. We had torrential, driving rain, absolutely crazy gale force wind. Our tent started leaking quite badly in several places, and then, to top it all off, we realized we'd forgotten to pack the backup flashlight. It was pitch black.
Oh my goodness, Mark, that sounds absolutely awful. What on earth happened then? Did you have to try and pack up all your wet gear and leave in the middle of that terrible storm during the night?
Well, we certainly seriously considered it. We must have spent ages out there getting soaked, trying desperately to fix the bent tent poles in the howling wind and rain. We debated just giving up and driving home right then and there, But then we couldn't get any phone signal to check the updated weather forecast or let anyone know. Honestly, it was all quite dramatic and miserable. Anyway, long story short, we ended up abandoning the tent and sleeping, or trying to sleep, rather uncomfortably in the car. We barely got any sleep at all, and then we just drove straight home first thing Sunday morning, completely soaked through, freezing cold and utterly exhausted.
Wow, okay, so long story short, it wasn't exactly a very successful or relaxing camping trip then, more like a survival exercise.
That sums it up absolutely perfectly, Mia. Definitely not the peaceful, relaxing weekend communing with nature that I had originally planned. Lesson learned about checking forecasts.
That dialogue perfectly and very naturally demonstrates the common usage of long story short. Mark began recounting the various details of his rather disastrous camping trip, but then effectively used the idiom to cut to the chase, bypass further potentially tedious details, and quickly convey the ultimate outcome to Mia. They ended up sleeping in the car and going home early, completely defeated.
Exactly. He clearly acknowledged that the full story was longer and more involved. It was quite dramatic, but then efficiently summarized the key, most important result for Mia. It saved time in the conversation and got the main point across very effectively and concisely. A masterful use of the phrase.
It's such a common and incredibly useful phrase for effectively managing conversations, controlling the level of detail provided, and keeping explanations clear and concise, respecting the listener's time.
It truly is indispensable in everyday chat. So, the next time you find yourself needing to summarize a long account, cut short a rambling explanation, or get straight to the point after starting a detailed story, remember the simple yet effective phrase, long story short.
And of course, we'd love to hear an example from our listeners of when you used long story short recently. What potentially long and winding story did you manage to summarize effectively using this phrase? Please share your examples in the comments section below this episode.
We always thoroughly appreciate reading your comments and examples. Well, Emma, that brings us to the end of another exploration. We've successfully navigated and explored 4 more really useful and very common idioms in this episode of Idiom Insights.
We certainly have, Jack. It's been another fascinating journey. Just to quickly recap the key takeaways for everyone tuning into Idiom Insights today, the 4 idioms we learned were:
First, bury the hatchet, which, as we discussed, means to end a conflict. Forgive past disagreements and consciously make peace.
Second was, curiosity killed the cat, a well-known proverb serving as a warning against being too inquisitive or nosy, as it might lead to trouble or unpleasant discoveries.
Third, we covered get your act together, a direct idiom meaning to become organized, significantly improve one's behavior or attitude, or start performing effectively and responsibly.
And finally, we learned long story short, a very useful phrase employed to signal that you are summarizing a long account and getting straight to the main point or conclusion quickly.
That's 4 more fantastic and highly practical tools to add to your ever-expanding English communication toolbox. Remember, listeners, the more you actively listen for these idioms in real conversations and media, and the more you bravely try using them in appropriate context yourself, the more natural and comfortable they will become for you.
Absolutely. Practice truly is the key to fluency and confidence. Don't be afraid to try these idioms out in your next English conversation or even in your writing. Experimentation is part of the learning process.
And if you genuinely enjoyed learning with us today, and we sincerely hope that you did find it both enjoyable and beneficial, please do consider giving this episode of Idiom Insights a quick like or thumbs up, and perhaps leaving us a positive review on your podcast platform of choice. Your valuable support really helps other learners find our show.
And please make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button for Idiom Insights right now, so you don't miss any of our upcoming future episodes where we'll continue exploring the colorful, fascinating, and exciting world of English idioms together.
Thank you all so very much for joining us today and lending us your ears. It's genuinely been a pleasure exploring these interesting phrases with you all.
Keep learning with enthusiasm, keep listening attentively, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next time on Idiom Insights.
Goodbye for now, everyone. Happy learning.
See ya. Take care.